Hello, my name is Daniel Gabriel, and today I'll be going over my counselor disposition reflection video. So, I have the questions right here, and I put them down with my answers. So, I'm going to go over them one by one, read the questions, and then I'm going to answer them all. So, let's get started with that. So, first one says, depending on your res- respective program, discuss your personal beliefs and their significance in counseling regarding the ACA Code of Ethics and or the ASCA ethical standards. So, I did read that one, so I'm going for clinical mental health counseling. So, with that, I've read the ACA Code of Ethics before as well as the ASCA. So, in my personal belief, I believe that everyone should have access to mental health assistance there. So if people are struggling, if they need proper help, then they should have access to it and shouldn't have to worry uh, a great deal about where they can get the help. That should be relatively accessible to everyone. So that's my belief on that part. As for the ACA Code of Ethics and the ASCA ethical standards, so I've read them both, and with the ACA Code of Ethics, that's where basically a lot of these organizations are rooted from. They're rooted really from the ACA codes. So I want to make sure that I'm upholding the ACA Code of Ethics to the best of my ability, because that's where a lot of the practices like originate from. It's really the ACA that has contributed to a lot of these organizations and a lot of the codes that we follow today. As for the ASCA, so that's more geared towards school counseling, and even if I don't go into necessarily school counseling per se, I still want to make sure that I'm following those codes down to a T, because again, these are the standards to make sure to follow, when you're counseling, no matter what the environment is. So select three dispositions you consider to be strengths and explain. So the first one I put for that one is high expectations, because again, we should all be holding ourselves to a higher standard and making sure that we are following those codes of ethics to a T and making sure that we're following them to the best of our ability. So I feel that's one that I feel personally I'm able to do, because I always want to make sure I follow everything down to the best of my ability and uphold the standards to make sure we are given the best, quality. The next one would be respect for the diversity of others. So I want to make sure that I'm being fair, open minded, and giving everyone that same opportunity to get the help they need, regardless of their background, regardless of their status, their financial, situation. I want to make sure that everyone has access to these clinical mental health uh, assistance. And then for the third one, I put down compassion, because even if we follow these things down to a T, we also want to make sure that we still have that element of compassion. We want to make sure that we're able to empathize, we're able to sympathize, that we're able to, not just be so, I guess you could call it, just like too methodical. You don't want to be just like, near robotic. You want to make sure that you're still a person at the end of the day, because they are people coming to you for help. So you still want to make sure you're giving that level of compassion. The next one says identify two areas of growth and explain. So I did put reflection down, not necessarily because I can't really, be aware of everything that I need to do, or I lack self awareness necessarily, but it's just making sure that I made sure to keep myself aware. Like make sure I have that self awareness to understand, like keep my mind open, and to make sure that I'm treating the situation as needed, because because it's very easy for people to be stuck in their ways and just stick to what they know, but you also want to make sure you're staying open minded and staying open to what others are saying to you or telling you. And then the next one I put advocacy. Advocacy is it's a balancing act, I should say, because on one hand you do want to make sure you can that the patient is advocated for and that they have their needs met, but at the same time you don't want to overdo it to where it kind of impedes on the help that you're trying to give to that patient. So with advocacy, it's a balancing act, and that's why I feel like I'm always like having to balance out the most. So describe how you plan to develop the professional identity, disposition, or the professional conduct disposition as they relate to ethical and legal implications. So I read about those ones as well. So I read that there's ethical and legal processes to this. So in terms of the ethical, it's just making sure that you're upholding like those codes of ethics and making sure that you are making sure you're staying ethical yourself, especially when you're helping others, other patients. And in terms of the legal sense, you want to make sure that you're upholding those codes by law and making sure that you're not jeopardizing them or tampering with that, because that could result in legal repercussions, whether it be revoked license, you could see termination, you could see possible jail time. So you want to make sure that you're following it in a legal sense as well. And then the last question is, choose a national or state's counseling association. Describe the members' benefits, activities, services to members, and current issues. Explain how involvement in state or national professional organization supports the growth of your counseling professional identity. So for that one, I went with the Arizona Counselors Association. So for that one, you're advocating for the profession, because again, as a counselor, you want to make sure you can advocate for others, and you also want to make sure you can advocate to keep those code of ethics where they need to be, like keep them in place. And there's also something called a professional liability discount, where basically like the members get discounts in order to for certain fees or for certain things they need, and then meeting other counselors and continuing to learn. So again, as a counselor, you want to continue to grow and learn. You want to make sure that you're always keeping with the times, because you don't want to stay stale. You want to make sure you're always growing and forever, adapting to the environment around you. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Bye bye.